Owen Matthews stood at the edge of the rain-soaked town of Riverton, watching the dark clouds gather over the horizon. The streets were slick with water, reflecting the neon glow of the diner signs, where on any given day, laughter and clinking cutlery filled the air. But today the streets felt heavy, pressing down on Owen's chest, dragging him back to a past he thought he had buried. Years ago, Owen had been a promising attorney, brimming with ambition and hope. But everything changed on that fateful night, the night he lost everything: his wife, his daughter, his very sense of self. The case that shattered his life had haunted him, an unresolved murder that left Riverton reeling, and him a mere shadow of the man he used to be. Now he was just a man, trudging through his days, making ends meet by handling small-time legal disputes while avoiding the gaze of the townsfolk. His heart ached with the weight of unacknowledged guilt, as the victims' families cast their eyes aside whenever he crossed their paths. They blamed him, as did he, for the case that had gone cold, and for the mounting pain in so many lives. The summer night when his life unraveled played in his mind like a broken record. A home invasion had sparked a horrid chain of events, leaving the town splintered and divided. No one had ever been charged. Cold cases were weeds in the garden of Riverton, persistent, unwanted, and ugly. His thoughts were interrupted when he spotted a familiar figure emerging from the dim light of the diner. Jenna, an old friend from when life was simpler, walked toward him, her brow furrowed with concern. She had been a supportive presence throughout the years, providing a shoulder to lean on when everyone else pulled away. "Owen, you look terrible," she remarked, her voice layered with worry. "Have you been sleeping?" Owen shrugged, forcing a half-hearted smile. "Just the usual. You know how it is." "Have you seen the news?" she continued, her tone quickening. "Another crime, just last night. A break-in over on Maple Street. They think it might be connected to, you know." The concern in Jenna's eyes deepened, and Owen felt the prickle of anxiety crawling up his spine. "You're joking," he muttered, eyes darting toward the ground. "They can't still be tying that to me. It's the talk of the town, Owen. It's like everyone's waiting for something to happen. It's not right." Before he could respond, a sharp whistle cut through the air, drawing their attention. A group of uniformed officers emerging from the shadows of a nearby alleyway seemed to be surveying the area with uneasy expressions. Owen had known many of them once. An amiable acquaintance now turned hostile due to the lingering uncertainties surrounding the unresolved case. Owen turned back to Jenna. "What do you think I should do?" "You need to find out what really happened that night." "You owe it to them, and to yourself," she insisted, squeezing his arm in a gesture of solidarity. The thought of walking back into the storm felt like carrying a weight a mile heavy on his shoulders. But as he looked into Jenna's eyes, he realized he could no longer run. The pieces of the puzzle were still out there, waiting to be connected. He nodded slowly, determination etching itself into his features. Taking a deep breath, Owen prepared to plunge back into the murky depths of Riverton's darkest secrets, not only to uncover the truth, but to find a path back toward redemption. As Owen walked alongside Jenna toward Maple Street, the rain began to fall heavier, drenching them in a refreshing but somber embrace. Muffled voices floated through the air, punctuated by the distant sounds of an ambulance siren. They approached the scene, where flashing lights painted the street in hues of blue and red. The familiar pulse of adrenaline coursed through Owen's veins, igniting a sense of urgency he thought had died with his past. "Stay close," he said to Jenna, the protective instinct kicking in, even as the memory of his failures loomed larger than ever. The officers seemed preoccupied, gathering evidence and taking notes. Owen scanned the crowd, looking for someone who might know what had unfolded in the early hours of the morning. Just then he spotted a young man, perhaps in his late 20s, hovering at the edge of the commotion. The boy's hands trembled as he clutched a cigarette, his eyes darting nervously between the officers and the onlookers. Owen recognized him. Jake, a local who had once attended the same high school. "Jake!" He approached the young man, feeling a sudden connection to the lost generation that had grown up in Riverton under the specter of that unsolved crime. "What happened here?" Jake looked up, his face pale. "It was bad, man. They broke in, searched the place. I didn't see much, but there were noises, and I thought..." His voice cracked and he took a shaky breath. I thought they were back. Who? Who's back? Owen pressed gently. The ones from, that night. But it's not just a feeling. The house, it's like they were looking for something specific. Jake whispered, glancing nervously at the officers as if expecting them to overhear. Owen's heart raced. Did you see anyone? Did you hear anything? The young man shook his head. No, but there's talk in town, Owen. Some old folks say they spotted a stranger lurking around. I didn't believe them. Until this. This wasn't merely a gruesome echo of the past. It was a signal that something deeper lay beneath the surface of Riverton. More than mere coincidence, the string of burglaries and assaults pointed to a pattern that mirrored the horrors of his past. Suddenly, an idea sparked in Owen's mind, one that brought with it an unsettling mix of fear and determination. He turned to Jenna. If they're looking for something, we need to find out what it is. We need to go back to the abandoned house. The old Murphy place? Jenna voiced, her eyes wide. It's been closed up for years. Nobody goes there. If there's a connection, it's the only place that makes sense. It's where the violence began, and it's where we might find answers, he replied. With a plan set in motion, they drove across town, the rain still pouring down. The eerie silhouette of the Murphy house loomed ahead, its windows boarded up, defying the passage of time and wear. When they stepped onto the overgrown property, an old fear gripped Owen. This was the heart of the darkness, shrouded in memories he had tried desperately to forget. As they approached the front door, the sound of their heartbeats mingled with the patter of rain, creating a rhythm of tension that seemed to echo throughout the air. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the scent of decay and neglect. Shadows danced along the walls. Every creak of the floorboards reminded Owen of the past. They moved methodically through the house, searching for anything that could unveil the truth. Then, in the dim light of a forgotten room, they stumbled upon something, a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. With trembling hands, they pried open the ragged piece of wood, revealing a small cache of items, old photographs, a child's toy, and a journal, its pages yellowed with age. Inside the journal, Owen's breath caught as he read the hastily scribbled entries detailing the fears of the former resident. The inexplicable sense that danger lurked around every corner, and echoes of the very crime that had shattered his life. But there, highlighted in bright ink, was something he had never learned before, a name connected to both the old case and the new crimes, a name that opened a floodgate of memories. This is it, Owen breathed, turning to Jenna, who was kneeling beside him. This is the evidence we needed. We have to take this to the police. As they hurried back into the rain, clutching the weight of the journal, a sense of purpose filled Owen's heart. For the first time in years, he felt the veil of guilt begin to lift. He wasn't just chasing ghosts. He was rewriting his narrative, pursuing the truth, and finally stepping into the light. When they reached the police station, adrenaline surged through him as he laid the findings on the desk. In that moment, Owen Matthews knew he was no longer a man running from his past. He was a man ready to confront it. And as the officers began to take notice of the truth he had finally unearthed, Owen caught a glimpse of hope, something familiar and promising. Riverton's shadows would gradually fade, and perhaps, just perhaps, a new chapter would begin for both the town and for him.